Hi, once again, I'm Sydney, and I am a servant of the Almighty God. Today, continuing the series of recognizing God's omnipotence, I want to do this special episode, which is about intelligence may be God's greatest creation. So let me just go back to where we are today. When I look at in the 21st century, for the first time, we can basically recognize that intelligence dictates behavior. This is not something that was known before the 21st century. So back in the 19th century, with Charles Darwin and Dmitri Mendeleev, and basically up until the beginning of what I consider our modern sciences, we observed things which we still do today, but there was no connection between behavior and intelligence. And the reason I've entitled this episode Intelligence May Be God's Greatest Creation is not, most people think of intelligence as, our ability to learn and execute certain procedures. The intelligence that we are now recognizing is that which is inherent, what I call the intrinsic intelligence that's all around us, everywhere in nature. Now, when I use the word nature, I always think of nature as the manifestation of God's omnipotence. That's what I refer to as nature, the manifestation of God's omnipotence. I do not see nature as a thing, the way it's referred to by many naturalists and scientists, as a thing that somehow goes around basically manipulating birds, telling them when to migrate, when to molt. It goes to bears and tell them when to go eat. And, so whereas, if you follow my series, to me, that's part of the thesis, that life logic module designed and created by the one creator. So the intelligence I'm talking about is the intelligence we see in a bird that figures out how to build a nest. So when you look at some of the, a weaver bird, for instance, right? Let's choose one of the really good ones. And you see, but every bird has a very unique way of building a nest. So we see, the naturalists will tell us they all came from one common ancestor. And so they say, well, yeah, from this year, you had this common ancestor and everything just came off that. We can observe that. But the intelligence that is embedded in every species varies. The intelligence that is within us, because now we can truly recognize intelligence dictates behaviors. So the intelligence that's within us, the intelligence that directs healing, digestion, okay? Even, I want to go off a little bit here with, like procreation, right? That intelligence that directs us and gives us pleasure, that goes towards procreation, that intelligence that generates pheromones, that causes that chemistry, which can drive people crazy, and we fully don't understand that yet. But without self-control, it can lead us down some terrible paths, right? We can end up doing some terrible things because of jealousy and all of that stuff. But there is an intelligence that directs the creation of these pheromones. There is an intelligence that directs digestion, regardless of whether it's a plant that's consuming insects, and all the mechanisms that go around that. You see, there's an intelligence because there is nothing random. It's a process, an intelligent process that is repeated again and again. And it is for that specific species. So when we look around, everywhere in nature, the behavior of trees, and when I talk about the ham dilemma, hibernation, whatever that intelligence that directs any creature that's going to hibernate, that first you must eat a lot. You need to gain some weight and then find a place to sleep for however long, 5 months, 3 months, 6 months, whatever. That intelligence that directs all of that, this is the intelligence I'm talking about. That intrinsic intelligence. Again, it's throughout our bodies. When we look at, so right now what you have is, you have religions today that are just becoming less relevant, because they are directing us to the behaviors of men in the past. Now these may be pious men who truly understood and felt the greatness of the Creator. But today, we have lost that connection. We direct everyone back to the past to say, this is how you should be. This is without recognizing the living God. This is why from the beginning of my series, I always said, we all exist in the presence of the living God. We all need to recognize that every scientist are making discoveries. DNA discovered. It's discovered. The periodic table discovered. Stem cells. Every process within our bodies. So now we see, the pharmaceutical industries and all of these scientists. They all. It's almost like once we discover something, somebody claims it. This is mine. It's almost as if they made that. We have to recognize that these are all discoveries. And today, we have a huge disconnect between religious who are pointing us back to way before our sciences. And I always point out, our sciences are the product of discoveries, revelations of what and how things were done. But naturalists have, and possibly partly because of the way religion behaves, if you learn about the Inquisition, right? Once men have power, unfortunately, I think it's the demons of, power and control want to take away the will of others. So you must do this. And so you have murders committed in the name of religion, because it really isn't about the Creator. It's in the name of men. Like you will hear about, I guess a Messiah who is coming back to murder lots of people. That sort of thing. That's what men do. But when we recognize that all of these revelations, these discoveries, should be leading us to recognize the greatness, the omnipotence of the Creator. This is why today I am doing this. Intelligence may be the greatest work of the Creator. Because we can see now that we are building intelligence and embedding intelligence, when you see the behavior of an ant in an ant colony, a certain sector of ants, they decide, this is my job. There is a certain intelligence embedded in those ants. You look at bees. So you look within a colony, and that separation of roles we see is separation of intelligence. And so for the naturalists who would say, well, think about that. Now it's almost like, well, let's give it to nature. Nature goes around to every hive and decide, this, you will be like this. Well, isn't that the same as say a Creator? Or, somehow it goes around to every species, and says, you will build a nest like this, you will do like this. That makes no sense. We understand now that the intelligence is embedded within a tree, within a grass. There is an intelligence. I know it sounds kind of way out, but think about this. Every process today, every process that we want to repeat, and that's been kind of my professional life, right? Automation. We build programs to automate things. So when a tree is doing something repeatedly, there is a process, an intelligence within that tree that directs behavior. Intelligence directs behavior. So today naturalists are scrambling, they're struggling with this, because when I talk about the ham dilemma, right, hibernation, we see the intelligence. Estivation, the frog knowing that I can go bury myself in the mud until water arrives again. So when there's a drought, the frog, the shrimp, whatever, estivates. Any creature that estivates, that says, I'm going to go become dormant, right, for that period until that entire process. Because you take a regular frog that is not designed and does not have that intelligence within it, and you bury it, you're going to dig up some bones. So that's the intelligence that I'm referring to when I talk about metamorphosis, right? The butterfly not putting those eggs on the right plant. The caterpillar does not have something to eat. And so everything that's involved there, if frogs laid their eggs on dry land, right, you wouldn't have the tadpoles coming. So that intelligence in metamorphosis, estivation, hibernation, there is an intelligence, because we recognize that now today that we have drones, we have robots, we embed intelligence. And so this is why I am inspired to bring this to you. We need to recognize the living God, the Creator, the one who designed and created the intelligence that is embedded in every species. This is why when we say something is instinctive, I refer to it as intrinsic intelligence. That's the intelligence that the Creator embedded into every organism, from the smallest. And so there are many things that now that we are building intelligence, right? We understand you need fast processors, you need lots of memory. Today we are testing, right? Imagine if the embedded intelligence had hallucinations where it would just go off, then that would lead to extinction. So the intelligence that is embedded into every living thing is the product of our Creator. We see that differentiation, right, within every species. Simple thing, look at birds. Almost every bird, right, there's a slight variation, not just in coloration, but I'm talking about the behavior. The behavior, when they build a nest, the sounds they make, all of these things, and none of it is random. None of it is random. So, we really need to discard that nonsense and the concept that, this can just spontaneously, just on its own. So this bird decides, or the bird decides how it's going to sing. The bird decides how it's going to make a nest. We can't do it to ourselves. So how can the bird do it? How can the worm do it? How can the tree do it? What we see is embedded intelligence. Something. And we know now it's our Creator, the living God. So as I speak today, I am in His presence. This is something, this awareness changes us because we recognize we are in all ways. We don't have to look to what somebody did 2,000 years ago. We recognize, and it brings us forward. It brings us forward to recognize that we are in His presence, and all the discoveries are revelations of His omnipotence. So when we hear nature, we think of this is a demonstration of the omnipotence of the Creator. So I want you to think about this as you go forward, and it's getting there. soon everyone will recognize, because now that we are embedding intelligence, that intelligence may be God's greatest creation. We're seeing that right now as we do get into artificial intelligence. We think artificial intelligence and we are thinking, oh, this is really going to change the world, right? When we do it, and it's unfortunate, but this is to open our eyes, spread the word. Intelligence may be God's greatest creation. The intelligence He has embedded, that which controls the beating of our hearts, that which controls the formation of nerves, that which controls healing, digestion, even everything that goes into procreation, the way we feel, the attraction, the pleasure, all of that is a product of His design. You see, and so when I talk about that logic module, the ESIS, it's all embedded in there. This is what connects all of us. But what is most important is that we recognize we are in the presence of that Creator. We are in the presence of the Almighty. And it's not about 2,000 years ago, 500, 6,000, whatever. It's about today. We are in His presence. We are witnessing the greatness of His creations. Today, we are witnessing His omnipotence. We must always also remember He's omnipresent. We are in His presence. So I want to thank you for taking the time, and hopefully this starts the process within you as you look around. Recognize every behavior we observe is the product of embedded intelligence. The intelligence that may be the greatest creation of our Almighty God. Let me thank you for taking the time to review this, and remember, this is not a coincidence. It's a series of decisions that you made at some point that led you down this path. This is about love. It's about bringing the world together so that we all recognize. I know there's a lot that we have, a lot of baggage. And it's based on good, but men have turned it into all kinds of stuff, disregarding life today. The work and recognizing the omnipotence of our Creator. So again, let me thank you, and until next time, may God continue to bless us all.